I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. Daniel 7:9, KJV. The prophet Daniel. Daniel is one of the major prophets in the Bible and is primarily known for his unwavering faith in God during the Babylonian exile and for receiving powerful prophetic visions concerning the future. Daniel, a Hebrew from the tribe of Judah, was taken captive to Babylon during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. Despite living in a foreign land, Daniel remained faithful to the God of Israel, even when it placed him in dangerous situations, such as being thrown into the lion's den, Daniel 6. His commitment to God, his wisdom, and his interpretation of dreams earned him a high position in the courts of Babylonian and Persian kings. Daniel's prophetic visions, especially those in chapters 7 through 12, are key to understanding the future of the world, the fate of empires, and God's plan for Israel. These visions reveal God's sovereignty over history and highlight the ultimate triumph of his kingdom over earthly powers. I beheld till the thrones were cast down. As part of the Theophany, this indicates a moment where human or earthly authority collapses. The thrones of worldly powers, kingdoms, and empires are removed or displaced, making way for the appearance of God himself. In this vision, Daniel is witnessing a direct intervention by God, preparing to assert his ultimate authority and rule over all nations. In a theophany, this sets the stage for God's direct involvement, marking the end of "And the Ancient of Days did sit." The Ancient of Days is a title for God, emphasizing his eternal existence. The act of sitting reflects divine sovereignty and authority. God is seated in judgment, a common theme in theophanies, where God is revealed as the judge of all the earth. The title, Ancient of Days, underscores that God exists beyond time and is the source of all creation, implying that no earthly power can stand against him. In theophanies, God often appears as a figure of supreme authority, and here he is the ultimate ruler, whose age and wisdom surpass any human or angelic being, whose garment was white as snow. The white garment symbolizes purity, holiness, and righteousness. In theophanies, God's appearance often includes symbols of his moral perfection and unapproachable purity. The whiteness of the garment signifies God's absolute righteousness and his qualification to judge the nations. In the context of this theophany, God's purity stands in contrast to the corruption and sinfulness of the earthly kingdoms that are cast down. In Daniel 7:9, the description of God as the Ancient of Days includes a phrase about his appearance, "the hair of his head like the pure wool." This phrase, particularly the mention of hair like wool, can be understood to refer to the texture of wool, which is often compared to the natural hair texture of many black people. The hair of his head like the pure wool suggest texture, which can be associated with tightly curled or coiled hair, similar to the natural hair of black people. The description of God's appearance would emphasize this wool-like texture, which aligns with how hair is described in many African and Afro-descendant populations. The wool-like texture, the passage also uses symbolism to represent attributes of holiness, purity, and wisdom. Wool was often associated with cleanliness and purity, especially in a sacrificial context, as wool was used in Israel's temple practices, e.g. for sacrifices, purity rituals. The white as snow aspect connects this texture to a sense of divine purity and righteousness. In many interpretations that focus on the ethnic identity of Israelites, this description is used to support the idea that the Israelites, particularly in the biblical context, were people of color. The wool-like hair can therefore be seen as a biblical representation that aligns with the traits seen in people of African descent, emphasizing the shared traits between historical Israelites and black people. Thus, Daniel 7:9 may not only describe a divine figure, but also carry ethnic and cultural reflections that point toward understanding the historical identity of God's people as having characteristics we often associate with people of African descent. This interpretation affirms the possibility that such biblical descriptions challenge more recent depictions of biblical figures as having exclusively European features. His throne was like the fiery flame. The fiery throne represents God's judgment, power, and purity. Fire, in biblical theophanies, often symbolizes God's holy presence and his ability to purify and judge, e.g., the burning bush in Exodus 3:2, or Mount Sinai in Exodus 19. The fire indicates that God's rule is both righteous and unyielding, and that his judgment will burn away the impurities of sin and rebellion. In theophanies, fire is a consistent symbol of God's purifying presence, showing his ability to consume sin and rebellion, especially in his dealings with nations that oppressed Israel. In Daniel 7:9, the wheels as burning fire connect strongly to the vision of the chariot throne in Ezekiel 1, where the wheels are described as a wheel within a wheel, Ezekiel 1:16. These wheels are often compared to the structure of a UFO-like object with a horizontal circular formation. This imagery has prompted comparisons to flying, rotating vehicles that resemble the descriptions often associated with modern depictions of UFOs. Wheels of burning fire and Ezekiel's vision. In Ezekiel's vision, the wheels are part of God's throne chariot, which moves across the heavens. These wheels are described as a wheel within a wheel, suggesting a complex, possibly interlocking or rotating mechanism. This could resemble the circular layered appearance of certain objects that have been compared to UFO sightings. The wheels are full of eyes, symbolizing God's omniscience and his ability to see everything. These eyes indicate that God is aware of all things happening in the world, especially concerning the scattered Israelites, and his movements and judgments are guided by this complete knowledge. The burning fire of the wheels in Daniel 7:9 emphasizes that this throne chariot is not just mobile, but that it carries with it the power of divine judgment. The fire is both a symbol of purification and destruction. It purifies what is righteous and destroys what is evil. Wheel within a wheel, and horizontal wheel formation. The horizontal stacked wheels resemble a circular disc-like shape, which some may liken to modern depictions of UFOs or other unidentified flying objects. This structure gives the throne chariot both stability and mobility, allowing it to move in all directions without turning, Ezekiel 1:17, reinforcing the idea that God's presence and power can go anywhere instantly and without limitation. Symbolism of mobility and judgment. The mobility of the throne chariot, represented by the wheels and their ability to move freely, suggests that God's judgment is not static. He is actively involved in his creation, executing judgment in real time. Just as the chariot moves swiftly, so does God's ability to oversee and intervene in the affairs of mankind. This is particularly important in the context of Israel's history, where God's active presence is seen in guiding, protecting, and eventually restoring his people. Conclusion. The wheels as burning fire in Daniel 7:9 and their connection to the wheel within a wheel in Ezekiel 1 are deeply symbolic of God's omnipresence, omniscience, and active engagement with his creation. The comparison to UFO-like structures or disc-like objects reflects the awe and mystery surrounding these visions. These chariot wheels symbolize God's ability to move swiftly across the earth, bringing both judgment and purification, especially in his interactions with the nations that have oppressed his people, Israel. The fire signifies the intensity and purity of God's presence, ensuring that his actions are both just and thorough. If any brothers and sisters would like a verse breakdown, please put your request in the comments, and I will explain the verses for you. Shalom.